Hey everyone, my name is Tegan and welcome back to TandeWrites, where today I'm giving you some book recommendations. I got this idea from Destiny Sidwell, who did this beautifully crafted hour-long video where she went through and recommended every book on her shelves that she would actually recommend to someone to read. And I thought, yeah, I want to do something like that, not an hour long. So instead of picking every book I recommend, we're going to narrow it down to one per shelf. So I can talk about it a little bit, give some recommendations, and hopefully not be too long. I don't have it in me to edit an hour-long video anymore. I really don't. But yeah, this idea is from Destiny Sidwell. I'll leave a link to her video in the description below, and let's talk about some books. So starting at the top here, I also, a lot of these shelves have books on the top, so we're kind of cheating. What do we have here? I think an honourable mention for this shelf would be The Way to the Stars by Kay Ancrum, which is this, I have another copy of it here, which is this very beautiful kind of sapphic love story between two girls, one of which who dreams of travelling through space, the other of which whose mother is on a one-way trip into space and can't come back. And any book about space that's not set in space but is about space and how vast it is makes us feel small as humans really gets to me. I cried at the ending of this. But I think the book I would actually recommend from up here, rather than going through every single Kay Ancrum book imaginable, is Our Wives Under the Sea by Julia Armfield. This is a sapphic love story set against the backdrop of a slow burn retelling of horrors experienced deep beneath the ocean, woven amongst the events that happened when she returned. The author depicts this very loving queer relationship. It shows a perspective that's very realistic of a woman in a patriarchal world, and the focus of the relationship is the unity of the characters' love and their thriving as a couple, rather than battling against society. So for once, this is a queer book where the true horrors are not homophobia. Loss and grief are key themes in this book, showing the loss of a loved one who is in the process of slipping away from you, juxtaposed with the loss of a parent to a degenerative disease. That's a word I can never get. There's this motif of degeneration throughout, which hit me a little as someone with a chronic illness, largely shown through Leah's state as she returns from the ocean, but also shown through droplets throughout, such as Miri's friend with declining eyesight. Loss is inevitable, coping is a necessity, and grief is infectious. I fear a lot of these shelves are going to have honourable mentions, because there's so many books I love here, a lot of which do have their own full reviews for. So on this shelf, Vesuvius by Cass Bean, which I read at the start of the year, has its own review. Go watch that. I love that book. I can't wait to reread it via audiobook to read it again. But I think... let me just pry this one out. This is Piranesi by Susanna Clarke. This strange little book is my favourite book of possibly all time, and I could write essays about the metaphors for ambition and identity and religion. This reads like a dream, slow, strange, and intensely atmospheric, unbelievably immersive and engrossing. The point of this story for me was not the mystery of the house or Piranesi's identity. The clues are there and it's not too hard to figure out most of it early on. The strength in this strange world that Clarke creates so vividly that I felt that I was walking through the halls and avoiding the tides and listening to the messages the house sends and catching a glimpse of the moon along with Piranesi. His hypnotic voice, the voice of the timeless scientist, transported me fully into the strange, orderly confusion and left me spellbound, and it was a spell that I did not want to end. I've reread this 5 times now, I think. Down here is exciting because we have my CDU paperbacks from when the debut in the second book, which was YA Contemporaries, which I love. We have Erin A. Craig, where Small Favours is up there with my Roman Empire reads, books that I think about constantly. Gargoyle's Queen I read recently, really fun, really enjoyed it, but I think the one we'll go for, and we'll grab the paperback version, I have it in multiple formats, will be Unraveller by Frances Hardinge. And yeah, many honourable mentions in that shelf. Both of the main characters in this are uniquely flawed. Kellen is utterly angry and stubborn and brilliantly brave. In summary, he's a delight and one of my favourite characters of all time. He has anger issues which result in any woven thing he comes in contact with disintegrating. The book's plot is largely driven by his actions or inactions and is a chain reaction of all the decisions he's made as he's explored his power and the people he has affected by using it. Nettle is the exact opposite of Kellen. She is gentle and caring, and a lot of her emotions are eternalized, and I adore her with my entire heart. I love how the author explores the lasting trauma of Nettle's curse and how her softness and kindness is a conscious choice as a result of it. Also, I love that she never quite adjusts to her human form after being in bird form for so many years, and the impact this has on her relationship with one of her brothers who has chosen to remain as a bird. So down here this shelf is double stacked. Behind, there's a lot of books I like but nothing I'd truly recommend. On the front it's kind of a similar vibe. I have a bunch of these YA sad girl contemporaries that I got from market research from my book. I think out of the Alice Osman paperbacks that are here, Solitaire is not. Solitaire I have a soft spot for because it's the first book I read. It is, to me, like completely timeless. Reading it 10 years after it came out, it still holds up. Loveless gets me because, as an asexual, this is like the first big asexual book I've read, and it made me feel normal rather than like something was wrong with me. I Was Born for this I reread recently, and it's such an interesting experience of like fandom and fan versus like celebrity relationship. And again, it's really fun. And then Radio Silence has my entire heart. In a way, I don't think I've ever made a review for it. I think the only Alice Osman book I've reviewed properly is Loveless. But Radio Silence is beautiful, it's stunning. I reread it via audiobook recently, and I would kill to have that narrator for my own book, There Will Be Other Summers. Because there's something about how she narrates the male characters that gives them this like, sad wet cat energy that I really need for Ren. Down the back of here somewhere I have my T. Kingfisher paperbacks. And I think that is what I want to talk about. Okay, The Hollow Places by T. Kingfisher. Slightly controversial because I thought, Nettle and Bone is my favourite T. Kingfisher read. But it was my first, so I was obviously blinded by greatness. And then the Clock Tower duology that has The Clockwork Boys and The Wonder Engine. As a combined duo, because that is not a duology, that is one book split into two books, that might be my favourite, but we're going to go with The Hollow Places for now. This book is kind of like if the 2018 film Annihilation and Our Last Echoes by Kate Alice Marshall had a child that was funny and gave me nightmares. The heart and humour that T. Kingfisher brings to all of her works is very refreshing in the horror space, and I think she's truly mastered this super weird, super quirky style that I find can be hard to nail. And it was Kara's character that made it a lot easier to keep reading the book with the lights turned off. The humour and heart is fed through her, and she was somehow a welcome, comforting presence throughout a horrific story. Okay, then back to this shelf. If I want to go for classics, autobiography, which is here, that's a puzzle guide. Autobiography gets me in like a early 2010s sad contemporary kind of way, but I think the actual recommendation here will be The Bone Houses by Emily Lloyd-Jones. I think The Drowned Woods is like a close second. When I first read this, I didn't expect to love a story that is, in summary, about zombies so much. The author did such a wonderful job of showing them throughout the perspective of myths and legends, and also removed a lot of the horror element, creating something that felt like it could have held a role in a fairy tale rather than a nightmare. And it's exciting to see how well urban tales and folklore mix with the horror or horror-influenced genre. One small thing that meant a lot to me about this book was that Ellis has chronic pain in his shoulder, and it doesn't disappear by the end of the book, as injuries tend to do in fantasy. The author talks about the toll it has on his body throughout the journey, and again, as someone with chronic pain, it's wonderful to see a character who lives with it and can still have adventures. Going down a shelf, I think These Violent Delights is a big honourable mention, so is Teeth by Hannah Moscovitz. Both of which I've talked about in some extent before. I think Teeth definitely has a full review somewhere on this channel. All the Bright Places, again, does it hold up? Can't say. Has it got a special place in my heart? Yes. I think right in this corner, Song of Achilles and Circe is also on here. This is a stacked shelf. But I think Our Hideous Progeny by C.E. McGill will be my recommendation from this shelf. I'm also hoping I can give you some eclectic mix of genres. I do predominantly read YA fantasy, as you might be able to tell, but it's something a little different. This is, I was going to say Frankenstein Retelling Reimagining. It is Frankenstein's granddaughter. Is it Frankenstein's daughter? Yes, it's Frankenstein's granddaughter. Tries to basically bring a dinosaur to life to prove herself in the world of science. And I love that for her. The great niece, not granddaughter, a bit different, because Victor Frankenstein was not cool enough to have kids. There's something I love about this book is that the author made the world as real as possible. Many of the characters, while still fictional, are heavily inspired by real historical figures, as are the life-size dinosaur statues in Crystal Palace that were created to illustrate paleontological models. Books Mary reads, the theories she discusses, and people she meets are all true to life, including the women who attend scientific society meetings, all of whom are scientists in their own right. Mary herself is named after 3 real-life Marys. Mary Shelley, the fossil hunter and self-taught paleontologist Mary Anning, and the so-called Queen of Science from the 19th century, Mary Somerville, whose contemporary biographies emphasise how she was the ideal Victorian woman, humble, pleasant, soft-spoken, devoted to her husband, etc. I like how the author's Mary shows the experience of a woman who is the opposite of Somerville. If it was difficult for her to make a name for herself, how impossible would it have been for all the women who couldn't bring themselves to make light of obstacles, grin and bear it? Women who were hot-tempered and prideful, women who posed a threat. Going down to the bottom shelf, again an eclectic mix, many of which, again, I like but wouldn't recommend. But I think Little Thieves by Margaret Owen, which I read for the first time this year and have become utterly obsessed with, should be my recommendation. I did not know what to expect from this book because 1, it's a Goose Girl retelling and I know nothing about the Goose Girl, and 2, the description truly says nothing about what the plot actually unravels itself to be. But I fell in love with Vanya, the anti-heroine, immediately. She's a bad person for the most part and she constantly has conflicts thrown in her path, and they're a whole lot of fun to read. Her story has a little bit of a enemies to lovers romance sprinkled in, as well as reluctant friendships and the complex untangling of her feelings towards forgiveness and revenge. And I'm going to be cheeky and choose another book from this shelf, because on the upcoming shelf we have my childhood favourites Angie Sage, Stepmother's Heap series, then we have the V. Schwab Shrine, and I'm far too conflicted about what my favourite actually is to recommend one, and also I think she's such a beloved author anyway, that I don't really need to make a recommendation. And also, I think I have her book The Dark Vault, which I think is 2 books in one, and I think that's going to be my favourite, but I haven't read it yet. So I'm just going to pick another book from elsewhere while I think about this. And the shelf below is the Maggie C. Potter Shrine, where I think Scorpio Races is my favourite, but obviously everyone really loves the Raven Boys. And we don't talk about All Crooked Saints. And then the Raven Boys graphic novel, again, beautiful. But let's pick another book from the bottom shelf. So this is The Church of the Mountain of Flesh by Carol Whitfield, and I'm lucky enough to own this special kind of illustrated, it's got full colour end paper, it's illustrated within. I'm just going to show you some slight spoilers. Oh, more pictures. And there's full colour illustrations in the back. I'm very lucky to own this completely stunning and beautiful edition. And also it's a wonderful book. It's not just pretty, the actual contents is great. This is a surreal fever dream of a book where it is unapologetically queer and unhinged, with writing that is so deliciously descriptive, I think I threw up in my mouth at one point. Church is an erotic cosmic horror about a trans sculptor who makes a deal with his eldritch god former lover to rebuild a church in exchange for his transition. In extreme summary. And I am still in awe of how ambitious this was for a debut novel and how successfully it is pulled off. As much as I was drawn to it for fitting my description of an evil little book, so body horror, sentient nightmare protagonist, the trans tentacles, I fell in love with it for the moment of tenderness and light amongst the dark, specifically 2 boys stealing kisses in a dark corner and holding each other in the ocean until they fall asleep, and a best friend who will hypothetically help you hide a body without any questions asked. I know we are eternally in a sensitive time for authentic representation of transgender characters, and for those characters to act in ways that are deemed acceptable to be liked by a wider audience. However, the author presents his protagonist as irredeemably evil, a hell-bent prophet rather than a saviour, and this is the defiant representation that I crave to be accepted. And then I'm also skipping the tops of my shelves up here behind my cacti collection and the ones here, because they're predominantly hardbacks I've not got around to reading yet. So I can't recommend them. Don't Like the Forest Sins there, that's wonderful, I have 2 editions of that. Dear Wendy was great, Junker 7 was great, Deep Light by Frances Hardinge is great, but also I have a paperback copy here. There's lots of books that are great that I really enjoyed, and a few that I have done full reviews for already, but we're gonna focus on the ones that aren't, already wildly popular. So I think as we come down to the bottom shelves where I have my Vampire Diaries collection that I can't let go of, and my Heartstopper graphic novels, I will choose What Lies in the Woods by Kate Alice Marshall, which is also the one Kate Alice Marshall book I can find in physical copy in this country for whatever reason. This book is chilling and atmospheric and suspenseful. Naomi is a great protagonist. She is mentally flawed and she doesn't make smart choices, but she is a resilient survivor of the violence she has endured, even if she is scarred by it. The story is full of twists and red herrings, and one of the twists is not difficult to predict, but I think that's a sign of a well laid out foundation to the story rather than a flaw. One of my favourite parts of the books were descriptions of the Goddess game, the game they spent the summer playing in the woods when they were younger. There's something about weird little girls pretending that they're deities and worshipping a skeleton with offerings that just sits right with me. Maybe because I was also a weird little girl who thought I was magical. It's the childlike wonder and whimsy and the warmth and nostalgia directly contrasted with the events that end the summer which speaks to me so deeply. Okay, so this is what I think I recommend from my bookshelves. And yeah, obviously the title and intent of this video is a bit misleading. This is not every book I'd recommend for my shelves, but these are the key ones for the sake of, a little video. But if I ever get into live streaming, I will sit here and talk about every single book that I enjoy even the slightest amount for you. And that's a threat. Yes, thank you so much for watching this video. If based off these you can predict other books you think I like, let me know in the comments below. Because if you ignore my, 2 shelves of unread books, I'm open to recommendations at all times. But thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope to see you next time. Bye!